In the book Critical Latin American Feminisms, Adriana Guzman says, our feminism is not based on the knowledge attained by reading the feminist canon established in the global north. We are not the daughters of Enlightenment, and I couldn't agree more. Our history of resistance is different from the Eurocentric theoretical framework, and here's why. My name is Sophia Herrera Maldonado, and this is my final project, Beyond the Enlightenment. I'll try my best to explain the reality of Latin American feminism and how it differs from this enlightened desire to achieve autonomy to reason and knowledge. I'll talk about decolonial feminism, resistance, and the Latin American experience. When I try to define Latin American feminism, I can only think about this collective of women that show up because they have to. I think about how they live violence, poverty, and systemic oppression in real time. Rather than emerging from an enlightenment theory, how she says it in the book, I think that our region emerges from resistance. We were built on a system that was violent from the start. I remember in school being taught about castas, this chart of hierarchy of how much Caucasian there was in you. A mulatto, an African, and a Spaniard. A mestizo was an indigenous and a Spaniard. A sambo was a mix of an indigenous and an African. Pardos were those that were too hard to define. And a paso atrás, or step back, was the kid of a mulatto or mestizo with an African or an indigenous. You were literally taking a step behind on your privileges. You were losing your whiteness and then you were losing your rights. Even though these concepts have no meaning nowadays, these titles are still used to describe people and racial mixtures. This very violent colonization really forced what we are today, our racial mixture, and this violent gender hierarchy. Later, this idea of mestizaje, all this mixture, was transformed into a national virtue, and then it was simply embedded into everyday life. But colonial settlement involved Spaniard and Portuguese men without their wives and families, and they came to create this racial mixture under conditions of coercion. This changes what we are and becomes a part of what we think. When I read this book by Adriana Guzman and Daniela Patiño, this really struck out to me. How, for us, feminism is experienced in the body. She says that feminism is not studied, it is done. The struggle is done from the body, not from books and theory. These can contribute, but they do not mobilize. Oppressions do. Rage with dignity does. You can see that Latin American women experience this day to day. Every 2 hours, a woman is killed in Latin America due to gender based violence. At least 2,795 women were victims of feminicides across 23 countries only in 2017. Global and North feminism often feels like a planned comedy, structured, theoretical, enlightenment ideas about reason and autonomy. And Latin American feminism feels more like a spontaneous gathering of something urgent that happens. It's built from survival and not abstraction. It is done from the body, shaped by action and collective response. This is by no means a devaluation of one or the other. That will be inherently opposite to to what feminism represents. I just want to talk about my context and how this really transforms your feminist experience and how feminist movements take shape. I could describe every concept that we talked in this class before I even knew the word of how things were named. When you're able to understand a concept without having the words for it, you understand how it is a reality for you. Maria Lugones was part of something I discovered through this class, she has a multidisciplinary approach. It's a framework on understanding women identity and how the reality of women reacts to being composed by multiple interwoven and inseparable parts. We talk in this class a lot about this. I feel like our mestizaje and our colonial legacy is really far beyond from a black and white binary. Mestizaje did create this illusion of racial harmony, but all of these hierarchies were based on color and race, and this persists still in us. Being born in Venezuela, I experienced a legacy of courage, leadership, and feminist imagination. Instead of understanding Venezuelan womanhood through external expectations, it is far more wonderful and powerful to look at the women who shaped our history to courage and intellect. I think about my family and all the Venezuelan women that I know, inspiring, strong, independent. Venezuelan feminism draws strength from figures whose life embodied defiance and possibility. Manuela Sáenz rode into battle alongside Bolivar, the founding father of more than three countries in South America. She risked her life to protect him from assassination, and she represents feminism built from action, conviction, and political intelligence. Juana Ramirez was la avanzadora. She was the one that went forward. She led the all female Batería de Mujeres, an all female battalion that will fight in the independence of my country. Then you have Teresa de la Parra, a writer who challenged patriarchal norms through literature, using narrative to question gender roles and to open a space for women intellectually, to put her emotional life and her resistance together through ideas, memory, and cultural creation. Venezuelan feminism is shaped by women that acted from the body through leadership, defiance, creativity, intellect. These icons show that our feminist tradition is not defined by superficial ideas, but by a long standing lineage of women who fought, wrote, led, and transformed history. In Argentina, my experience was strong but different. You can see how feminism takes shape in the streets. Ni Una Menos was a movement started in 2015 whenever Chiara Paez died. She was killed by a feminicide. She died for a gender based crime. She was a 14-year-old teenager. In Argentina, one woman dies every 30 hours. And these women fought and they went to the streets and they talked about it. Not one woman less. I remember in 2018 how Buenos Aires was filled by women on the annual Women's Day commemoration day. 350,000 women marched that day. Intersectional mobilization, indigenous communities, environmental activisms, unions, students, migrants, all of this, it's together and it's forward. Argentina made visible that women already knew. Violence is structural. Laws do exist, but they do not stop the killings. The response had to come from the street, from bodies, demanded to be counted and protected. Connecting Latin American feminism to this class was very easy. It was all about embodiment and autonomy. We learned that oppression is structural, not individual. And we talked about the isms in this class as well. Latin American feminism exposes how capitalism, colonialism, poverty, racism, and heteropatriarchy overlap. Like the coverture in the early Europe and North America, modern systems regulate women's bodies and choices. Latin American feminism insists in bodily sovereignty, full control over one's body, free from external judgment or harm. I was shaped by this. My own feminism comes from seeing these examples. Venezuelan women like Manuela Sáenz, Juana Ramirez, Teresa de la Parra, My own family, my own examples of women and femininity come from courage and imagination and intellectualism. In Buenos Aires, I witnessed how alive activism is. Ni Una Menos March with thousands of women demanding justice. I understand then how feminism and Latin American feminism is alive and it is a collective of women. It is shaped by survival and community. I want to make a point in how feminism comes and flourishes through service. It is theoretical, there are many ideas that help us understand, but it has to be embodied. We need to live these concepts. Dismantling oppression requires a structural change, not only individual adjustment. Latin American feminism teaches me how theory means nothing without action. Activism starts in dialogue. It grows through education, but it flourishes through service. Like the Riot Girl Manifesto says, girls and women hold a revolutionary soul force. Gracias.